Hi, perhaps you recognize me. It's your favorite president.
We will decide who comes to this country and the circumstances in which they come.
Anybody in this country doesn't minimise their tax. They want their heads ring.
Socialists don't like ordinary people choosing, or they might not choose socialism.
The answer is might, because I want to do you slowly. I want to do you slowly. I was saved by God to make America great again.
We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender.
Well, thank you all for coming to this event. We've had a big day. We've been out touring the Central West Orana Renewable Energy Zone. And look, I don't think words can really describe how angry I was seeing what was happening to the poor people out there, having their farmland taken away and having to deal with these projects without any real consultation with politicians or even the companies that are pushing these projects. So I want to acknowledge first Senator Sean Bell and also Stuart Bonds from One Nation, who came out here today to view this in the flesh. So please give them a round of applause. I do also want to quickly acknowledge Rachel Merton, who's a Liberal member of the Upper House. It was actually her idea to do this, but she couldn't get any of the Liberals organised to get out here. So One Nation were the ones that stepped up, and they're here. So we're happy to, Let's Rethink Renewables is happy to take any group out to tour the Central West Orana with the help of some of our friends out here. But yeah, One Nation was the ones that jumped on the bandwagon this time. I also want to acknowledge some other people that are here tonight. Firstly, Councillor Adam Zara from Campbelltown City Council. He's come all the way from Sydney to view this as well. You may think, why is a councillor from Sydney out here? Well, what's happening out here in your community affects everyone in New South Wales. So what's important for you guys is important for his council, so he's out here viewing it as well. We've also got Katy McCallum, the president of Let's Rethink Renewables, and also Grant Piper, the chairman of the National Rational Energy Network. Thank you, Grant, for coming today. I also want to acknowledge a lot of the groups that jumped on board to help us support this tonight. Some of these are national groups like Property Rights Australia and NREN, but a lot of them are just community groups. None of them are getting money from the coal industry. We'd love it if they did donate some money. That would be great, but unfortunately we're all volunteer supported. None of us get paid to do any of this work, and we rely on the community really to help us out. So thank you to all these groups who got behind this event here tonight and the tour today. And if you want to see the footage of this, it's all going to be broadcast on the Commanding the Narrative network, which I run my website. So please head to commandingthenarrative.com in the next few days, and we'll have all the footage from the tour and also from tonight's proceedings up on the website. Now, as we are filming, I'm sure you all are all aware of what's happening in your own communities, but for everyone watching at home, I just want to quickly explain what the Central West Orana Renewable Energy Zone is. Now, if you go on the Energy Co website, it says that these 5 renewable energy zones that are littered across New South Wales are the equivalent of modern-day power stations. Now, I want you to keep that in mind when I tell you that the Central West Orana Renewable Energy Zone will be 20,000 square kilometres. So that's 20,000 square kilometres of a modern day power station. Now, when Adam and I were driving up here from Sydney, we passed Mount Piper, the coal plant. You'd blink and you'd miss it. And it was powering, I think, about 15 to 20% of New South Wales power in that one little footprint. But instead, we've got 20,000 square kilometres of solar panels and windmills and high voltage transmission lines. And how much is that going to contribute to the New South Wales electricity grid? To put the 20,000 square kilometres into perspective, that's the same size of Wales. It's the same size of Israel. It's an incredible amount of area. So that's what we're talking about today when we're saying that we toured this area. We saw the windmills, we saw the solar panels at Wellington, and we saw a lot of the proposed sites. We saw how pristine the land was currently and how it's going to be transformed when these projects are underway. So I don't want to talk too much tonight. This is more about you, the community, asking questions of the politicians and the representatives. So first I'm going to invite up Stuart Bonds, who is a prominent leader in energy policy. He's been hard pushing back against net zero, and he works in the coal industry, and he knows what he's talking about. He's very thorough on this area, and he's also a hard campaigner in the Hunter Valley. So please welcome Stuart Bonds.
Hello, everyone. Firstly, thank you all for having me out here, and thank the guys that took us around here today. Did a lot of kilometres, and we've probably seen about, I don't know, maybe 5,000 square kilometres of the 20,000 that's proposed to go forward. So just a tiny bit of my background. So I've been a coal miner in the Hunter Valley for the last 20 years. And so I got involved with politics because these renewable energy projects started coming for my job. Right, and there were renewable energy projects proposed around my area as well. So the hills that are surrounding my place, they've sort of slated those for these wind turbines. I'm hoping that it won't go ahead because it's a bit of rocky country up there and it's quite hard to get to, but I'm looking at some of the turbine projects that are proposed here and they look very similar to where my joint is. So look, you're not alone in this fight. There is... I talked to some landholders today that they had the transmission lines going to go through their property, and never trust someone that shows up to a negotiation with a gun in their hand, you know, and these guys are showing up to your land and they're telling you that you don't have a choice, you know, that you can take our first offer or you can take our second offer. Once we take all the legal costs out of it, it's not going to be as good as the first offer. And I can understand why people are concerned and they're signing up to these things to run through the properties. And what we've seen today was probably 5%, I guess, of what is actually going to come about to this community. And I don't think that people fully understand exactly what's about to go on. So once these transmission lines go in, obviously you've got an AC system, which is what our current electricity grid runs on. You have coal-fired generation, create an AC power, it powers the entire country. Now we are generating DC power, so we're generating a completely parallel grid. All of these renewable projects need to feed into this DC line. This DC line then needs to run to a hub, which is like an inverter in your house. And then that has to plumb into the AC line, which is your current grid. So it's an extremely inefficient way of generating electricity. There hasn't been one renewable energy project to date that's met its target, either on timeline or on budget. Just for a little bit of inside baseball, so the Malcolm Turnbull's pet project, the white elephant down there, Snowy to Hydro 2.0, it was $2 billion. They did all the costing on $2 billion. It's going to be a great project, state significant, biggest battery in Australia. We're looking now at a $40 billion cost once that thing's delivered with the transmission lines. Right, so if it was profitable at $2 billion, what happens when it's $40 billion? Right, the interconnectors around here, they costed them in, and the hub, they costed them in at $600 million. You're at about $6 billion. So it's 10 times over. So this is why the costs are blowing out, why your electricity costs are going up, is because of the initial construction phase of this is blowing out. So what do we propose to do about it, I suppose, is the question. Why are we here? You've probably seen a lot of politicians kicking around that, but none of them, as Sean said earlier today, is, you know, these politicians show up at the opening of an envelope. You know, if there's a sidewalk opening in their town, they show up, get a picture. Where's all the pictures? This massive billions of dollars of infrastructure, and there's not one photo of them, you know, leaning on these turbines, leaning on the transmission lines. And so that's very telling to me, that they're ashamed of what they've done to these communities. They're ashamed to be associated with it. And so what we need to do is we need to bring people out here. Now, the National Party, as far as I'm concerned, has completely sold this community out. A Liberal National Party. A lot of this happened under their watch. A lot of this is a Matt Keane wet dream idea come about when he was Energy Minister in New South Wales. And so we've got to undo it. It's going to be very difficult. I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight, but our party completely opposes what's happening here. There are 20 communities around Australia at the moment that are going through this at the moment. So there's 20 renewable energy zones here, there's New England, there's all down in the prime real estate, down in the Riverina, which is our food belt. You know, most of the food of the country comes out of the Riverina. They're destroying that country. They're running interconnectors all over there. Nobody knows what's happening out here. So we need the media. We need the media to come out here. So the more attention that you can pay, that you can bring out here, the more people that you can bring out here, the better. So there'll be time for questions later on. So I'll hand over to Sean. I won't take the mic up for too long. And I'll call up Senator Sean Bell. He's come all the way up here, coming to speak to you guys. So there'll be time for questions later on if you want to hold them. Sean, if you want to come up, mate. Senator Sean Bell, One Nation.
Thank you, Stuart. First of all, thank you so much for the organisers today. Let's Rethink Renewables, Stephen, bringing us out here. It has been a really useful trip. It is so I know One Nation has been fighting against this sort of net zero ideology from the very beginning. But just to see the rapid acceleration that we've experienced under this Albanese Labor government, it is eye-opening, it is shocking. And to come out and to talk to some of the people who are affected and to start to learn some of the detail, it curls your toes, because what is occurring is a farce, it is a travesty, and the worst part about it is they're saying we need to do this for energy security. Instead, it's only driving energy prices up. The entire premise of it is based on a lie, that somehow this is the cheapest form of electricity, and it is not. And so that is why I can stand here today and I can say One Nation will scrap net zero. The entire premise. And when I say One Nation will scrap net zero, we're not talking about just changing a slogan, because, you know, I believe One Nation has started to win that argument, and what you've seen from some other parties is they've started to make overtures about the same language. But they don't tell you what that means. When we say we'll scrap net zero, that means taking apart things like the Renewable Energy Investment Capacity Scheme, which is how they are funneling your money, your taxpayer dollars, into these projects that will ultimately, they will not do anything to bring down the price of electricity. Not one thing. They will only continue to drive electricity up. And so what we're witnessing is the wholesale destruction of your community, rural and regional areas, farmland, agriculture, the destruction of it for nothing. The only people who are profiting are government, Labor government, and a lot of multinational corporations. And I tell you, if you had any idea how hard we have worked to get to the bottom of who's funding this, where's the money coming from, what are they doing with your taxpayer dollars, and it's like a vault. Something that happened the other day that I think is incredibly telling is we've recently got Barnaby Joyce on board, which is and he has been a huge asset so far to the organisation, and we had the opportunity in Parliament for the first time to ask a question in the lower house at the same time we asked a question in the upper house. So we just flat out asked them how much money in the federal budget is going towards the Renewable Energy Investment Capacity Scheme. In the lower house, Jim Chalmers stands up and goes, "Oh, well, I can't tell you that because it's a commercial in confidence agreement." Right? Up in the Senate, Pauline, she asked the same question of the minister representing the minister, Katy Gallagher. She goes, "Oh, well, I'm sure those figures are in the budget." So not even parts of the Labor government, not even their own ministers, realise that this information is being kept secret from you. You're the ones funding it. You're the ones propping it up. And at the same time, you're the ones paying. It's utterly disgusting. It truly is. And so when we say we will scrap net zero, what we mean is this obsession that the Labor government has. It is an ideological obsession based on greed, on politics. It needs to end. And which means instead of looking at, politics based on ideology, like the other day I was in an interview. They did an interview. It was supposed to be a puff piece, but it just turned into a lot of hard questions. And they asked me, they said, Sean, what legacy do you want to leave as a senator? And I said, well, honestly, if I retire and they say this is a bloke who worked hard to bring down the cost of living for everyday Australians, so that children like mine, my daughter, that they can have a better standard of living, then I would be happy with that. And they're like, well, no, we want to know what's your legacy. And I'm like, that is what I want. That is what motivates me. If we can start bringing down the cost of electricity, then we can start helping all Australians. It's one of the simplest fundamental concepts. And so the fact that we've got coal mining in the Hunter, coal-fired power stations that have been powering our nation for hundreds of years, and yet the Labor government is hell-bent on shutting down those mines and shutting down those power stations and then taking your taxpayer dollars and then funneling towards projects that will only raise the price of electricity, it does boggle the mind. And thank you, Stuart, for stealing my line about you can tell a politician is ashamed when they will not take a photo in front of a project they've built. They'll go to an opening of a letterbox, they'll go to a sidewalk, and yet when was the last time you saw a Labor politician, or a Liberal for that matter, standing in front of one of these monstrosities, one of these solar farm monstrosities, go, oh, look what I've done? Because not a single one of them will ever want to fess up to that. And I am hopeful that if we can start to educate some people in the city, if we can take it and show the young people truly the consequence of this policy, we can start to turn things around. And I know often people, they're sceptical that this is the case. And I'll use an example, the voice to Parliament. 80% of Australians used to front up and say, well, that's a great idea. What a fantastic idea. And all it took was one nation leading from the front saying, no, this is a bad idea. It's divisive. It won't work. Drag the Nationals across the line. Suddenly they were arguing the same thing. Drag the Liberals across the line. Suddenly they were arguing the same thing. And all it took was a concerted effort arguing the truth, arguing against the obvious flaws. And in a few short months, we were able to have the entire country vote, and just it was a crushing defeat. And I truly believe that the same thing is possible with net zero. I truly believe that this process that we are going through is so absurd, is so damaging to this country and communities like yours, that if as soon as we start exposing it properly, and that is why I'm here today, it's why I've come straight out. I came on board as part of the One Nation Senators from the last election. I think I was invited out here, was it the end of last year or early this year? So I said, yes, that is what I want to do. We need to go out there. We need to get photos, and we need to start exposing this to a broader, wider community. So that is what I'm going to continue to do. And in Parliament, we need to start hammering away at ministers, exposing the documentation. Just the other week, I was able to get the government to hand over documents about a solar farm in Lumbra, and you can see in there, plain as day. Yeah, we thought we'd told everyone that these farms were going to be plonked right next to your property, but it turns out that, there was some farm holders, and it was a significant amount. 2 years before anyone gave them any notification that their properties were about to be 1 kilometre to 300 metres away from a massive industrial solar facility. And because these aren't solar farms, these are industrial solar complexes. And they are, to think that I think, when you put it in perspective and you tell people these are the size of 1,500 football fields. We're talking 1,500 football fields, and one of these won't even churn out 7% of the electricity of one coal-fired power station. So to me, the premise is very simple. What we've got is a giant, expensive, inefficient waste of taxpayer dollars that is destroying it is the most beautiful part of our country. These areas, and it's tearing our communities apart. And so that is why, I mean, again, I'll say it again, One Nation is 100% opposed to this ideological net zero obsession. We will do everything we can to protect the natural land, the farmland that is being devastated by these unnecessary, inefficient projects. They shouldn't exist, and if we have anything to say about it, they won't exist. So what I'll say is, look, thank you again for everyone who's come out, and thank you anyone who was there today who's showing us around the properties. Every time I'm able to get out there on the land, meet people, I learn a little bit more. And I can take that back, I can inform the party, I can inform Senator Hanson, and I can take action on the floor of Parliament, which I'll continue to do. And so, I mean, and there's been a huge explosion of interest in One Nation recently. I believe we are well placed to be the party that will actually deliver on this for you. I promise you that. We will not let this go. We will keep fighting, because if we can't stop it here, because you are part of the tip of the spear of this project. If we can't stop it here, then I fear for the future of this country. I truly do. And so we're here with you. I've come to visit you. We're here with you. One Nation stands with you. And so with your continued support, I truly believe we can stop this. I truly do. Thank you. Mate, I'm happy to talk later. There's going to be a Q&A later. So I won't, I'll keep things moving, but any questions, put them to me later. I'll be on stage. Thank you, sir. Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you, Senator Bell. Look, I think a lot of politicians, they're scripted and they normally, memorise a script or they read off a script. Well, I don't think many politicians speak as passionately from the heart as Senator Bell just did, so please give him another round of applause. Now, as I said, the whole purpose of tonight is for you guys to have an opportunity to speak to some of our politicians and also some other community leaders in the room. So we're going to have a break now for some mingling, and we're going to come back at 7:30 with the Q&A. So please take the time to mingle and meet people and talk to our politicians. Thank you. We've got a couple of speakers who are going to quickly speak first before we get to the Q&A, so we might start a little bit early. But before we get to the speakers, I just want to embarrass someone in the audience. Emma Bowman. When this idea came up about doing a tour of the Central West Arana, I had no idea. I hadn't been out here before. I knew exactly what I wanted to do and what we wanted to do, but I needed someone on the ground with the experience and who knew the area and knew everything. And that was Emma. So she has gone above and beyond the cause to put the whole day together, the itinerary for the tour, getting all the residents around to talk to the politicians. So I would like everyone to please give a round of applause to Emma Bowman. And again, Emma is a volunteer. She's not getting paid for any of this. She's doing it because she loves her community and she wants to fight for her country. So we need more people like Emma in this country. Just like the next speaker as well, she's come all the way down from Queensland. She drove, she had a hell of a ride getting down here. She went through all dirt roads and went way off track, because don't ever get in the car with Katy McCallum because you might not survive. But this is the president of Let's Rethink Renewables. She's just going to let you know a little bit about our group. So please welcome Katy McCallum.
Thank you, Stephen. G'day everyone, my name's Katy McCallum and I'm a Queenslander. And that's all I'm going to say. No, I do have to say, but I hit Gundawindi, came across the border, and within about 5 minutes yesterday, rang my husband and said, we're moving to New South Wales. You guys have got no idea how good your roads are. Has anybody here been to Queensland in the last 12 months? Yeah, we don't increase the speed limit up there, we decrease it because we can't fix our roads. So nearly every road in Queensland's 80 k's an hour now. I did 80 all the way from Toowoomba to Gundy to the border. And then I got to your beautiful roads. Anyway, I won't waste any more time telling you how great New South Wales is. Look, I am obviously from Queensland. I come from a place called Kilkeven, which is 50 kilometres west of Gympie. I did drive down here yesterday and it took me several hours extra because of Google, which I shouldn't have relied on. I do have to say I ended up in the bush somewhere and saw some really crazy black wallaroos, which I've never seen before. Those things look like they'd eat you alive. I don't know if that's a New South Wales thing. But anyway, because we don't have them up there. So I drove all this way because I'm the president of Let's Rethink Renewables. I used to be the vice chair to Grant with NREN when we had that running, and I'd never been down here to see what was going on with my own eyeballs. Up where I live, we have the sister solar farm to the Wellington one. We have Lower Wonga and Waluga, which are nearly identical. They've been running for about 5 years now, been wiped out by hail once, replaced with 63 shipping container loads of panels, and the old ones went in the ground. So I wanted to get down here to see what was going on because within my network I get to talk to a lot of people and I want to tell them the truth. Because the truth is that the renewables are destroying rural Australia. They're gutting our communities and it's a death of 1,000 cuts to every single country town in this nation. And it is happening. I'm seeing it with my own eyes. So Let's Rethink Renewables sort of came about. There's another bloke up in Queensland called Jim Wilmot. We raised a whole heap of cash, and what we decided was we needed this colourful, jazzy campaign that would capture the interest of people in the city, because they're the people that aren't taking any notice of what's going on out here, and they don't seem to care either. But hopefully they would if they saw some giant, big billboard that had, I think, our koala. I know the productive farmland one's down there. They would capture their interest. They would look at the website and go, oh, these poor buggers out in the country are actually copying it. So we developed the campaign on 5 principles. That is that we think that the 5 pillars that are holding Australia up, that keep our nation the way it is, are our productive farmlands, our rural landscapes, our wildlife habitats, our Australian way of life. But the one that I love the most is our strong communities. Those are the things that keep this country where it is right now. And those are the things that are currently at risk through this industrial renewable rollout that they're steamrolling the whole countryside with. We must protect those 5 pillars without saying we must protect them. It is so important. So what we all need to do, and I've spoken in so many town halls over the last few years telling them about this, I ask everybody after every meeting they've been to think about 5 people that you know in the city, whether it's families, friend, whoever, ring them up and talk to them. Because we need to open the lines of communication. The disconnect between the city and the country has become so big in the last few decades that I actually don't even know if we can re-bridge it. But we're going to be the ones who have that job. And it is bloody hard, can I just say. You would all know we are all fighting on our own dime, on our own time. We're all here right now when we should be at home watching what's on TV on Saturday nights. I don't know, because I don't get to watch TV anymore. So Let's Rethink Renewables it's a not-for-profit group. We're not funded by anybody but ourselves. What we're trying to do is get these core flutes out to everybody around Australia, put them on your front gate, get the message out there that those 5 pillars of the fabric of Australia are unrenewable. Once they're gone, they are gone for good. Once you destroy a town that took 220 years to create, you will not get it back again. And that is going on around the whole country, because I've travelled Queensland, and now after 13 and a half hours I got here yesterday, I've travelled down the Pilliga yesterday. That was a bit scary. And yeah, I know that. I was waiting to get eaten by one. So we have to protect those pillars, right? We have to. I've got kids, they're both at home. What's going to be left for them if they destroy rural Australia, which is what's happening right now? So please, phone a friend, 5 of them, talk to them about this, tell them about those pillars, tell them those pillars are what have made this nation what it is today, and we must hang on to them for dear life, because once they're gone for good. Thank you.
So Katy mentioned another group, the National Rational Energy Network, or otherwise known as NREN. They're fighting the same battle. They've been fighting it a long time, trying to educate people about what's happening in your communities and right around the country. Their chairman is Grant Piper, and let's welcome Grant to the stage to have a few words.
Thanks, Steve, and Katy and Adam for coming up, and everybody, and Bill and Amber for coming over and visiting us. Now, I'm not going to be as exciting as Katy to speak, but just some facts, okay, and some figures here. Now, the people from the city the spruikers that come out of this don't understand why we don't get on board. They think we should take one for the team, we should just suck it up, accept the umpire's decision and roll over. Now, the wind farm like opposite us and the ones that they're building around here and Badangra, the long-running average capacity factor for those wind farms is 29%. So if you put a 6 megawatt turbine up, over a year on average, it behaves like a 2 megawatt turbine. That's all it produces on average. Put another way, that's about 2 days a week it works at capacity, say producing 6 megawatt. For the other 5 days it sits there doing nothing. So that's what capacity factor means. Solar panels have got worse capacity factor. They're down around 19% because the sun sets every night. So that's why they've got to build so much of this rubbish. Or they think they can build a lot of this rubbish. And in the Central West Arana Res, and Emma will probably get up me for using old numbers, we've got over 14 gigawatt of projects planned in the Central West Arana Res. New South Wales is the biggest load on the East Coast grid. So we're the biggest toaster in the line. And at the peak, we consume 11.5 gigawatt of power. So we're going to have 14 plus gigawatt built in this res only, and like Steve said, there's half a dozen revs around the country. So that's the massive overbuild that they have to do, and then it has to be backed up with batteries, and then that has to be backed up with gas, and then they've got to connect it all with transmission lines. So that's why your power bill will never come down. It's never going to come down with this system because it absolutely makes no sense, and everything has to be built 4 times over. So to those people that think, oh, we can make a quick buck out of this, or all the foreign nationals and the local land hosts that facilitate it, and I think they've been sold a pup, and they honestly sign in ignorance in lots of times, but we're all the poorer for it. A few people might make some dollars, but you come back in 10 or 15 years and tell me how many dollars you've made once your land's been destroyed, contaminated, you've got to decommission these products, and they move on to the next big scam, and the intermittent energy revolution is forgotten. But we all have to pay for it. We're all on the hook for it in the longer term. And, you know, I appreciate Sean, Senator Bell and Stuart Bonds coming here to hear our stories and visit our territory and see what's going on. But it's just a microcosm of what's happening right across the country. So, to finish, we've got we've got the Land and Environment Court coming up here this Thursday on Tungi Lane. We've got a court case, Marshall Bayview and URB Tungi Lane lines. We've been denied joining that, but you're welcome to come and observe. We can't protest. You've got to behave yourselves. But if you want to come and help support and show the Commissioner and the Land and Environment Court that, you know, we support this court action to stop the Ace and Valley of the Winds project, and that's just one of many. You're welcome to come and observe 10:30 a.m. Thursday at Tungi Station. Just look for all the vehicles, and we'd appreciate the support if you could make it out there. But thanks again for everybody putting this on, and I really appreciate the efforts you make. And yeah, that's all I can say. And thanks for the One Nation. I wish you the well, and stick it up the established parties is all I can say for that end. Thank you.
Okay, right now I want to welcome to the stage again Senator Bell, Stuart Bonds, Emma Bowman, and also Katy McCallum for our Q&A session. I do a lot of work organising events right around the country, and I normally have one rule. And that rule is when it comes to the Q&A, don't put the microphone in the hands of the audience, because normally you get those people that want to tell you their life story and they go on and you can't grab the microphone off them. Well, we're going to break that rule tonight. We're going to give the microphone to you guys so we can hear from you, because that's the whole point. We want to hear from you. You can ask questions. Please be mindful that we want to hear from as many people as possible. So if you do have the temptation to tell your life story, please keep it limited. We've got Councillor Adam Zara cracking the whip for you. So let's get started. Who wants to be the first cab off the rank to ask a question?
The question is, why is it happening? Now, all of the politicians have got to be complicit in this. We need a forensic audit of every politician's income and all their offshore bank accounts and everything else, because that's the only thing that makes sense why they're doing this. Thank you.
I mean, the reason this is going ahead is because, it's two reasons. Someone's making a buck and they want to win votes. So what you've got, and this is why the Liberal Party, and I don't want to talk too much about the Liberal Party, but they are that terrified they're going to lose votes in the city because they're not supportive enough of the climate alarmist narrative. They will sell everyone in the regions, they'll sell them out under the bus. So that's one aspect. It's politics. They are terrified, they are scared, they don't want to fight it, and they're weak. The second one, it is money. 100%. You've got large vested interests, multinationals, big donors, and I can go another step. You've got, if you start looking at industry super funds and their connection to this, and then you start to realise that Cbus Super, the president of the chair of Cbus Super was Wayne Swan, who was also the president of the Labor Party at the same time. And that was up until just a few months ago, I think. So that they're all in it, embedded together. Big business, big money, big politics. It's that simple. And again, so that's the answer. That's why it's going ahead. And that, there aren't enough, and the reality is there aren't enough parties like One Nation who've had the guts to stand up to try and stop it.
And I believe Malcolm Roberts actually said this to me, he said, never, ever underestimate how stupid these politicians are. Right? He said, Malcolm said, I was quite a big conspiracy theorist before I walked into politics, and now I realise that most of it is just sheer stupidity. So I've paraphrased it a little bit, but there's some wise words from Malcolm Roberts.
Hi, my name's Camilla Armstrong. I'm from a property out near Marothery area where you were today. My question is, or our question is, as politicians here, what can you do to get people who aren't already sitting in this room to understand the concept that you're pushing, to scrap net zero, that the reality of renewables, it's not going to work? Because I could have written the RSVP list of who was going to be in this room. It's always the same ones of us, and I appreciate that, and we always keep turning up. But I lived in Sydney for years and years before I moved back to the bush, and none of my friends or old colleagues up there have any interest in learning any of the information about what's actually going on out here. So in your position, what can you actually do to get, because we're preaching to the choir, so what can you do for us?
I mean, and you're right, and this is something we've identified. I just think it takes persistence. If there's one thing I've learnt I worked for Pauline for 9 years, is that persistence pays off. You have to be persistent. You can never take a backward step, and you have to be creative. You have to think outside the box, which is one of the reasons why we have that. Pauline put out the cartoon. Pauline Hanson's Please Explain. I don't know if any of you have seen the cartoon. There you go. I mean, someone mentioned the other day, and I said, you know what, I don't actually think we ever did a cartoon on like the renewable energy zones to that extent. We have done a bunch of ones on climate change, but I'm going to take that straight back to the boys. I think sooner rather than later, we'll be starting to release the episodes again. They'll be fortnightly, and that's a topic we're going to have to hammer. And I do think we are seeing sort of those green shoots of people starting to care. The other day, a poll came out that had One Nation ahead of the Labor Party in Victoria. And if you dug into those numbers, you'd see that One Nation was actually leading the Labor Party in voters 18 to 35 years old. And if you look at the things that One Nation have been hammering, one of the things we've been hammering hardest is the scrapping net zero. And we would not be leading in those demographics, 18 to 35, if people were not sympathetic to that message. So that's why I stand on stage and I can say I am hopeful that we can win that argument. Sometimes it might seem hopeless, sometimes it might seem that people aren't listening, but I truly believe we are starting to win that argument, that young people are starting to realise, even if it's only because they're looking at their power bills, even if it's only that the argument to self-interest is starting to cut through. But I do think we are winning that argument. And yes, it's repetition, you just have to keep on message, and if one way's not working, try another, try creativity, and that's why One Nation has those avenues like the cartoon.
And one avenue that we're going to have to do is get into people's lounge rooms with them, right? Which is we're holding them in our hands, our phones. You know, this is our pipeline into the electorate, and we need to use it. We need to bring people up here, and I'm actually going to try and raise some money to get a sort of a mini doc filmed up here about what's going on. I mean, we've got some good footage, some drone footage. I mean, I can guarantee you that 1 million people will see that footage. And I mean, this is what we need to do repetitively as this sort of project goes forward, is we need to document it and make people feel it when they go to the voting booth, you know, because at the moment it's a victimless crime. They don't see it. They don't come to the bush. Katy was saying, like, we've lost our connection in the city with the bush. You know, back in the day, everybody from the city was from the bush, or they had family. They used to take their families out there to the bush. Now we don't do that anymore, you know, and we've immigrated a lot of people, and they've come from other countries, and they never even leave the city. They would never even come out here. They have no idea what is going on out here. They actually think that they are saving the environment, which is the craziest thing. You know, I'm led to believe that we're wrecking the world coal mining, and I'm actually really glad to think that we're actually saving the world. You know, when I look at what's going on here, and I think this whole res zone is going to replace one coal-fired power station if the weather's good. One. But listen, it's up to a lot of you guys too. I mean, one of your councillors, I believe it was, filmed a fire at that solar panel, right? National news, right? It hit national news. And we need to do those small clips, right? You might think it's insignificant. A turbine blade going up the road, right? And the traffic all stopped. A truck bogged on the side of the road with one of these turbine blades on it. All of this stuff, people are interested in it. It's just got to get out there and the right people share it, you know. You might not think because you're seeing it every day, but this has to be documented. And that's up to you guys. I don't live out here. I've got my own problems in my own area I'm trying to deal with as well. And I really want to get involved in this and help you guys. But, you know, you got to keep what you're doing now. And Steve and the team, you know, this Let's Think Renewables, I think that this is going to become a really national platform for these projects.
And if you catch footage of another solar project on fire, please send it directly to my office. I will immediately put it on my Facebook page, I promise you. Because that's actually, that last one we did share that, and yeah, we helped get that message out and show people around. So yeah, any more of them burst into flames, any more batteries burst into flames, just send it to me straight away, straight up, and I'll get it on the boss's page too. So, good point.
As I asked you a bit earlier, now the damage has been done. You can see, you've seen that. How do you stop it? It's another 2 years before there's an election. If you people are strong enough, how do you stop money financed through the Senate? You know, that's the only way you can do it.
I mean, and yeah, that's the $1 million question, is like, once something's started, how do you stop it? One example I'll use, and this is the thing, the backbone of this entire farce is taxpayer money. If it wasn't for taxpayer money being funneled into these projects, propping them up, they would not be going ahead because they cannot stand on their own 2 feet in the free market. So the way I see it, you have to turn the tap off. And you think about, I'll use an example that people think about. For instance, we used to have a car manufacturing industry. At some point they decided we don't need any more government funding for that. They turned it off. No more cars are being made. It's the same, and so it just means you turn off. If we pass a law to stop giving them your money, the ones that are not viable are going to go away. So that doesn't happen overnight. When you've got the Liberal Party, the Nationals, the Labor Party all working together to continue the momentum of this. So the reality is, unless people like myself, people like Stuart, other One Nation people get in, when we say we're going to scrap net zero, we will turn off the taxpayer tap that is propping up these projects. Unless we get in, then they are going to continue. The other thing is, if we continue to put on pressure, we continue to expose them, it creates risk. It creates risk for these corporations. Right now, they think, you know, there's zero risk. we're saving the planet. Everyone loves us. We can go out, we can do what we want. There's zero risk. If we continue to expose it and we show the reality that these things are just essentially disgusting eyesores, a blight on the land, it starts to generate risk. And you look at the hit job that people have done on coal mining industries, on coal-fired power. It's about essentially just doing the same thing but in a truthful way, just exposing the reality that these things are driving up power prices, they don't work, and they're entirely propped up by taxpayer money. You tell the truth and you get that message out there, companies will not be rushing to associate themselves with them. And then again, you turn off that tap and these things will collapse on their own. So, you know, is it going to happen overnight? No, I can't promise you any instant fixes or quick solutions, but I can promise you that if we continue to persecute that argument, to push it forward, you know, there is hope. There is hope, and I mean, we've already seen, we see every day one of these projects falls over. Another one doesn't go ahead. So, was there anything else you wanted to add to that? No? All right, so that's the answer. That's the best one I got, mate.
Thank you all for coming. I want to make an inquiry about the biosecurity. There's millions of tonnes of gravel, topsoil, stuff coming in on our road every day. There was 40 mils of rain yesterday. All the stuff ran down out of the camp, where they're building the camp, straight... Sorry?
We drove through it.
Yes, and then what that does is run down to the river, goes out to Menindee Lakes, to where all the Greens want to keep everything, so that's not green. So how can we get that through to them?
I mean, yeah, that's another excellent question. I think as we were driving through that, I'm like, I wonder what Sarah Hanson-Young would make of this. It did not look particularly environmentally friendly. I mean, I know that you'll drive past like new housing blocks, and you'll see that the amount of work that's put into, say, silt reduction to stop that is flowing into the waterways, huge. You've got sandbags, got multiple barriers. We're driving down there, and I was looking around in shock, because what we've got are these newly dug tracks. There's no sort of erosion things on there, and every 100 metres you'd see a few things pegged in to perhaps stop it. But that's all pouring straight down into a creek. And I'm like, if this was, if this was any other project, those people, I don't want to say they'd be in prison, but I'd be nervous. If I'd done that as a private landholder, I'd be worried there'd be a knock on the door and they'd come drag me away. So obviously there's either, well, some kind of very special exemption's been given, and I'm looking at some of these things that they've dug in there, and I'm like, hey, I don't want to start saying people are floodplain harvesting or like sucking up, but that's what I'm like. Yes, we did. Yeah, we will. So, I mean, I was quite shocked at what we saw in terms of. So, yeah, I mean, what did it compare to, say, some mining projects you've seen, or?
Yeah, well, I'm assuming that these would have went through with the same consent conditions as like a mining project, which is the water that falls on the site must stay on the site, and so we they don't have to.
No.
Well,
This one does.
right. Well, but I don't know about that exact site, because they've brought in material from other sites. They've turned over, and there's just the clay and overburdens just running off across the road into the paddock. We drove through it. So I can guarantee you that's not EPA friendly at all. There's no way in the world that they could possibly allow that to be going on. So, yeah, look, a shorter call in the EPA, which I would encourage you to do, just keep doing it, because they've got to log. Yeah, I know it sounds like a running joke, but they've got to log all these things. They've got to log all these things, because if you stop complaining, when the media goes and asks how many complaints have you had about this, and they say 27 and they stopped coming in about 3 years ago, well, there's obviously not a problem there anymore, all right? Just keep doing it and bugging them. There's water running out of the site into the creek. State, federal, your state, federal members.
Just because this might be just because some elements might be state funded and they might be private companies, just stuff, state and federal. Do both.
Their words are, it is state significance infrastructure. And that's what they harbour.
So I've watched this. There is not a project. The lefties will shut down. You can't build a dam on your property without having to deal with some kind of endangered skink, right? So I say, don't worry. Just state, federal. You fire those complaints away because you are. And it might feel like a waste of time, but 2-3 years in the future, where there's a different government in charge, one that might be more sympathetic. They'll be looking for those examples, and if you've not put them through, and I'm saying state and federal, don't just do them both, because you might. If you've written one complaint, send it to both, because without those, then people don't have the capacity to act. And in the meantime, if they've failed to act, then that is also of consequence. A failure to act is also of consequence. So don't think for 1 second that type of action is fruitless, because you never know what's going to be the sort of straw that breaks the camel's back in terms of taking one of these projects out.
Thank you, Sean. So in terms of the EPA, there has been at least one complaint lodged. I can tell you that the EPA told me that they investigated what had happened, the water runoff from the camp. They came out, they had a look, they thought everything looked fine. I have evidence that it's not fine and the water has run across the road into the river, and I told them to look again.
You can see it today.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I have put the pressure on them to look again. But when I looked into who is responsible for the New South Wales EPA and who they report to, well, it's Minister Sharp. So doesn't that say it all?
The Fed too. Fire it up. Just take it straight to the Fed.
Yeah.
But they're who you've got to fire your emails to. So your local members, right? Because their first thing will be, have you contacted your local member? But then to the minister's office, right? They're the most important. The environmental minister's offices, send them, because you will get a response, because they've got like 50 staff and they can't not respond to something like that, right? If you say that there's runoff coming out of these properties going into another property and into a creek, they will respond, right? In which, when I get home, I'm going to take some of the footage that I've got, write up an email, and CC everyone into it and send it and say, well, we went for a tour, this is what we seen, right? And they'll have to send somebody out. It is a pressure cooker, right? You have to just keep adding pressure to it. It seems fruitless, I know. I can completely understand. Right? You're fighting against a behemoth that feels like it cannot be beaten.
But it's not only here, it's everywhere.
It is everywhere, and it's every state, and it's every town, and I get calls constantly. I'm fielding calls from the people down the Riverina. They're particularly copping it down there as well. I'm not too much in Queensland, but these guys in Queensland are,
We kept the foot on the throttle over the Forest wind turbine complex. Here's a good example of what happens. I mean, years and years of time and effort, letter after letter after letter. A massive group of people that live over on the Cooloola coast, just near Fraser Island. Huge, one of the biggest wind turbine complexes proposed in Australia, and it's been knocked on the head, because we made so much noise and the activist group made life so hard for every level of government that and put so much pressure on them, got it in the media at every opportunity, and they knocked it on the head in the end. And it was a government-funded initiative. And that's what you have to do. And it's hard work, but that's why we're all here.
And the other thing, it can be, sometimes it's just timing. And the best timing can be in the lead up to a state or federal election, and New South Wales' state election is not that far away. And I can give you a perfect example. There was a number of years ago when I was working for Senator Hanson, phone call, just a bloke called up on the phone, got onto me and said, mate, I kid you not, they are about to start pumping captured carbon dioxide stream into the guts of the Great Artesian Basin. And I said, you're joking. He said, look it up, Google it. I Googled it, pulled it up. I said, we are on it. We ended up going off, writing an inquiry, got it up, debated in the Senate, ended up getting through, got media attention, and about a week later, Stephen Miles, in the lead up to the Queensland state election, was like, this is too spicy, knocked it on the head straight away. And now they've gone on, with a Liberal government in charge, they've gone on to ban any type of carbon capture storage injection into the Great Artesian Basin. So I mean, that is just, effort, timing, a bit of luck. But I would say if you're about to do any kind of activism, you're about to start reaching out to your local member, you ramp it up as the state election gets closer and closer. You should ramp it up more and more, because at the end of the day, those politicians, that's what scares them most, is the thought that they might lose their job. Okay, you might be you think I'm about to lose my home. They think they're about to lose their home. So if you're about to do any of that, ramp it up as the state election approaches.
Yeah, look, we've got examples like Marothry Road, which to me, when I look at that, that's just outright ecocide. So when you see something like that happen, and you've got footage, and you've got all the wildlife that's been picked up and taken round to veterinary hospitals and wires and all that sort of stuff, who is held accountable for that? Who drove the bulldozer? Who ticked off on it? Which one of those people that cut down with the chainsaws? Who went up and checked the nests? And it's Energy Co. Why are they not being held responsible? And who can do that? How do you stand there in Parliament and get hold of these people and say somebody needs to be taken to court, somebody needs to be charged, and somebody needs to be made an example of? Because they're all just following guidelines. Guidelines are not enforceable regulation. Regulation needs to be put in place, and until those people are made an example of, and I'm sorry for the people that drove the bulldozer, but they all know better. Every single one of them has a licence that says you don't touch these birds in nesting season. 100-year-old trees, and they've got a clean paddock next to it. Absolute ecocide. And if we want to stop it going forward, then these things where we've got that filmed and we've got that copied and the Coast has seen it and it's had views, and Phil Taunton is the councillor that went and filmed that, and he was interviewed on 2GB. So the footage is there, the coverage is there, but how do we, us, all of us, make those absolutely specific people get identified and charged?
So just an example, so I don't know about that specific example, but I'll just give you an example from my world that I'm in the coal mine. So I don't know if you've seen a site called Mining Mayhem. So what it is it's a site that follows all the stuff that happens in the coal mines, right? And there was one of the machines was there, and something happened on site, and it made its way onto this site, right? And they got a contact from the regulators that then went through and then wanted all this information about what's gone on at the site for that incident to have occurred. And they wanted personal information, they wanted machine inspection things, they wanted all of this explanatory stuff. And that is what should be happening with these environmental organisations, right? They should be saying, we've got footage of this, we want to know who was on site, who was driving the bulldozer, who was the supervisor, who was the overseeing manager of this, right? Because the strongest laws that we have in this country are environmental laws, right? They are environmental. Nothing will pull you up quicker than if you cut down the wrong tree, and for that to be happening, send me the footage. I'll try and blow it up a bit further, because it shouldn't. That should not be things that just can slip through to the keeper. Like, it just is unbelievable, mind-blowing that's occurred, So I can't explain why it's happened, but to me, I'm not in Parliament, and unless you're in government and you're a minister, it's very hard to hold these people to account, But that's why these things are set up, is for things like that. But when it's your own government doing it to you, it's very, very hard. Very hard.
So as well as being a Queenslander, I used to be a police officer for many years. Putting a report into the police is going to be your best friend over everything. Can I just say, I've already done it myself up in Queensland for several things. They stole all of our... Queensland Transport stole all of our core flutes out of the trees, and it was illegal. So I put a complaint on for stealing, trespass, you name it. If you see an animal being injured, it's a state offence under the Animal Protection Act. So as well as your environmental laws, you can document everything. Whether those trucks splash mud up on you when you drive past them, that's a traffic offence. If they knock a bird out of a tree and kill it, that's the unlawful killing of an animal. They knock somebody's fence post over, there's a willful damage. But what you need to do is you need to put every one of these individual complaints in online. Now, what will happen is it'll go to your local cop shop, and from there, they'll go, oh my gosh, these people are making a lot of noise. And the one rule that every government department, including the police, work on is oil the squeaky wheel, righto? So something will happen if you get it recorded. And you've got to remember that the end of the road for any complaint is with the police service. So if you start to put these complaints onto them, they have to act. They have no choice. So they have to have a crime number. They have to be able to address it within their system. It needs to be recorded. I wouldn't ring them. I would go straight online. So we've got Police Link. You've got the same thing down here. Thank you. What's the phone number? 131444? Yep. Correct. Don't call them. Put it online. Now, the thing is, and it's the same here as what it is up there in Queensland, if they don't act upon it, or in the case that we had up there where they put a bulldozer through a private property, knocked down someone's trees, then completely knocked down their whole fence. That was up at a solar farm at Gingin. It made it on the front page of the Australian newspaper last year. They put the complaint into the police, and the police wrote it off and said there's nothing to see here. And so what happened then? Well, they rang me and I'm like, well, you need to make a ministerial out of this. Now, when I was a junior cop up in Mount Isa, if you even got wind that there was a ministerial coming your way, your bumhole was going like this for about 2 weeks. Because if you had the minister breathing down your neck because you stuffed up, you are in trouble, right? Yeah, you end up on the front page of the Australian. So if you put a complaint in about a lorikeet that's dead because one of these assholes knocked it over with a bloody bulldozer they weren't meant to hit it with as that came out of the tree, put a complaint on. Police Link. Just do it. It will work. It's going to bring you so much attention. You're going to love it.
My question is political for Stuart and Senator Bell. I guess relevant to this res, our closest election will be the New South Wales election. Given that most of One Nation's traction is in coalition and National Party seats, and the National Party have been driven to pretty much, in their terms, abandon net zero due to the threat of One Nation, what sort of presence does One Nation have to have in the Legislative Council to affect climate policy at a state level, and how much impact would that have on local policies such as the res here?
Well, yeah, thanks for that one, but a lot. I mean, I would say, like, look at the representation that we've had from Barnaby Joyce is one guy, right? The rest of the lower house at the moment, I don't know if it's just my news feed, but they just don't exist at the moment. It's Barnaby Joyce is probably 50-60% of the news cycle, and he's one man. And so if we can do that with one guy, because he's saying things that no one else is saying. And if we can get half a dozen people in there into the upper house. So the upper house, for those who don't know, our New South Wales Parliament runs like the federal parliament. There's a lower house and an upper house. There's 93 lower house members, your local reps. You know, you've got your Dougal Saunders. He's your local rep, crowd favourite, I hear. You've got Roy Butler, you know. They're your local reps. And then you've got your upper house members, and there's 42 of those. 21 of them come up for election each 4 years, so it's an 8-year term when you get in there. So at the moment, the communists, the Labor Party, they've got the majority in there with the mix of the real communists, the Greens, and Animal Justice, and a couple of others, right? But there is a slight chance, but it's not zero, that Labor could be that on the nose that we could actually get in a balance of power position this time around in the upper house, right? It's slight, but it's there. But the following election after that, it's on, right? And they can't do anything or pass any legislation without our support. So we've got a job to do, a hell of a job, which is continue this to the election. We need to get 4 or 5 people in there, and then we need to repeat the job. Now, I've been on this train for nearly 10 years now doing this, and I'm still not in the front door yet, right? I'm still not in Parliament. So it's a long road. It's a long road to fight this. This is fresh to your community. I mean, been here for 5 years or longer. I mean, wouldn't say it's fresh. Like Emma said, she's aged 10 years in the last year, and so it's a battle. I'm willing to fight it, but we need your help come election time, because we cannot get in there without your help. You may feel like an idiot standing there on a polling booth, and I've had to do it numerous times, so I know. You're handing this out, but it's for the good of your community, it's for the good of your country. And if we don't get in there, this is just going to repeat over and over and over again in every single community, and we can't stop it without your help. That's the reality of it. So Sean's in there. I'll hand it over to Sean now, but he's got a tougher fight in the feds at the moment.
And thinking about your question, how many people do you need? I'd say as many as you can get. The truth is, you only need one person, the right person at the right time. And I'll point to Senator Pauline Hanson, who has been fighting for 30 years. And you look at but you look at the effect she has had. She's had support. She's had Senator Roberts there. Federally, that was 2 people. You look, almost 9 years, suddenly we've come through, the Fed, 2 more have come through, myself and Senator Whitten from WA. Next thing you know, the whole apple cart is upturned. One nation soaring in the polls. We've got them outpolling Victoria, and I can tell you, that is making a difference. Right now, you look at the rhetoric of the Liberal Party and the National Party before the last election and now, and it is night and day. And we don't even have the balance of power. So to answer your question, all you need is one person. More is better. You're the right person, the right voice at the right time, and you can change the entire narrative. So, that's the answer to that. So even, all of your support, all of your help, if you can just get one person in, that person could be the difference between the outcome that is good for your community or not. So, that's definitely something to keep in mind. So if the question does come up, should I be out there on polling day? And again, I've done it. It's not fun. But I can tell you what is fun. When you get that person up, you help get someone in, and then a year or 2 years down the line, you win that argument, you win that fight, and you win that issue. There is no greater feeling in the world. And you do get wins. We do win. So...
Thanks very much. My question's really for Stuart, and I really don't mean to put you on the spot. I'm trying to see what you might have that you might offer the group. Because you're an advocate, obviously, for coal, and I think a lot of us think that we should still be in coal, but where's the place for nuclear? Can you talk us through where coal and nuclear, how we might go forward with alternatives?
So, I use the reference of Sim City, as a game I used to play as a kid. You used to start off with these shitty wind turbines, and then you'd work your way up to a nuclear power station. That was the peak of your civilization in Sim City, and that was 1989 or something, right? We knew this in these computer games, and so nuclear power is the future, right? We export 30% of the world's the world's uranium is located in Australia, and we should be doing what we can to develop it. But the first step in doing that is it's currently illegal to do anything at the moment with nuclear energy. So we need to remove the moratorium on it, which is banning anyone even spending any money investigating it, because you're not going to put money into investigating something that's illegal, and then the free market will do its thing, which I think in the long run, nuclear power stations will become the way forward, which is they are expensive at the moment, but I think the more of them that are built, the cost is going to come down, right? It's just repetitive. But in the meantime, the bridge for us to get from where we are now to that future are coal-fired power stations, right? These high efficiency, low emission coal-fired power stations, we need to replace what we already have, build the capacity. They can be a lot bigger. I use the reference of my 1986 Land Cruiser, which was the same year that Liddell Power Station was built in. I've got an 86 Land Cruiser. I can tell you that my new Land Cruiser is completely different to that 86 Land Cruiser. But the Labor Party and the Communists, the Greens, they'll have you reference the 1986 Land Cruiser and they'll say that thing is inefficient and it's dirty. But I'm not talking about rebuilding an 86 Land Cruiser. I want to build a 2025 Land Cruiser, right? You have a look at the ones that they're building in Japan. They look like they're out of a space station. They don't look like a coal-fired power station. They're aesthetically nice to look at, right? These things are so efficient now that actually, because of the earthquakes, they request a certain amount of ash content in their coal. I think it's like 8%. So when they burn it, they have the residual ash and they actually put it into their roads and their buildings. And that's how they can have an seismic event like what they had recently. It was like an 8.8 earthquake, and all their stuff doesn't fall apart because the fly ash that they put in the concrete. We used to put it on our roads, right? That's why they used to put it under the roads. That's why the roads didn't break down when they had the residual left from the power stations. Now it all ends up in these ash dams because we can't get it out of the place, right? So we don't have the right legislation in place. But we can build new, clean coal-fired power stations. They're about $7 billion. Well, we could have built about 6 or 7 of them for the price of what's going on at Snowy Hydro. I believe that's the go, right? That's where we need to go, and we need to work towards nuclear power. That's not something for me to say whether we will end up building it or not, but at least we need to open the door as a possibility.
And so right now it's illegal. There's a moratorium. So One Nation I think it was around about 2018 on a state level did move legislation to overturn the ban on uranium mining in New South Wales. It was voted down by the major parties, and then on a federal level, we'd have no problem overturning that current federal ban. There's a federal and a state ban in New South Wales. So the federal ban, we're happy to see that go, and the state ban, we're happy to see that go as well, because we believe we should be, utilising that abundant natural resource that we have.
I just quickly want to ask a question to all of you, and I want to start with Emma. We want to talk about the human aspect of what's happening out there. We spoke to a whole bunch of people today, fifth-generation farmers. We spoke to people that their families are being torn apart by this sort of stuff. If you had the opportunity to speak to a Zali Stegel or to speak to a Blackout Bowen or to get on national media and let them know the personal stories that are happening out in this community, what would you say to them?
Well, you're right. They don't care, because I have spoken to Chris Bowen about it. And he just thinks that everybody in rural and regional New South Wales and Australia is happy with the transition and everything that he's rolling out. So he lives in his own echo chamber, which I believe a lot of the city-centric politicians would be the same. Look, what has this done to our community? We've got people that don't speak to each other, family, anymore. And we've got people that have been put under immense stress for the last, 5 years at least. Other people have been dealing with this for longer. So, we all have jobs, we have businesses, we have families. We used to have things we liked to do outside of those things that we, not everyone, but there are a lot of people that don't get to do those things anymore because we're too busy head down, bum up, working out what the hell's coming for us next. So I think the human aspect of what has happened in this res alone, and I believe it is the same anywhere, and even outside of reses where these renewable energy projects are turning up. And now, we're looking at rare earth mineral mining to go with the renewable energy projects. It's tearing rural and regional and remote Australia apart. And I do worry about the future, because I don't know if you can fix that ever. So I think it is very difficult what is rolling out, because there are winners and losers in every situation, and so whichever way this plays out, someone wins and probably someone loses. So I don't know if we can go back from that.
Well, I think I made it pretty clear earlier on what I think about the industrial renewables, and that is that it is destroying the backbone of Australia. It's a death of 1,000 cuts to every single country town in all of country Australia. So I say to everybody in the city, and I've been saying it for the last couple of years, and that's why I want you to ring your 5 people. Come on out here and have a look what's happening to these people's lives in these areas. Hop in the car, drive out here. You need to see what's going on in reality. We have the same thing up there. I have had grown men at the shop counter. I own a shop, I own the general store in Kilkeven. I've had grown men crying when they found out that their property, their forever home, is going to be destroyed. It is demoralising, okay, what's going on to individual people. I do not believe that people like Zali Steggall and Blackout Bowman and Dickhead Albo have got any idea what is happening to individual Aussies out here. So we need to get that message to them. They need to know what they're doing. We're just as important as the people in the city. If you could get the essence of what happens to every single person, the stress, the strain, the fear that you're going to lose your home, which people have, as we know, look what we saw today, and you could bottle that up in a tablet, I would go to the city and I would force every single person to swallow that tablet. That's how I feel about it.
So I just had a bit of an idea. I'll just float it now. So they're obviously not going to come up here, but we had these cardboard cutouts of Pauline, right? Life-size cardboard cutouts, and they were a hit, right? They are in everybody's. That's a Pauline Hanson's backyard. They're in their shed. They're stapled to the roof. They're everywhere, right? They stood about this high. So going off what Sean said, that Chris Bowen, Zali Steggall, they won't come up here to be photographed with these things. So maybe we should get some cardboard cutouts of them and we should bring them up here, right? And we should stick them in your car. And so when you're driving past, you're like, here's one of these turbine trucks bogged, right? Get out, get Chris Bowen out of your boot, stand there and take a photo with them, right? When they're take them down to these renewable energy zone when there's the shit going across the road, get Chris Bowen out of your boot, stand him there, take a photo with him, and we will bring them to this area, right? We will bring them in cardboard form, but we will bring them up here. And it is quirky little things like that you would be surprised how quickly that they take off, They will fold him up. He won't take up much room in the back of your Hyundai Excel. We'll get him in there with your electric car. So I'll float it by the party, but these things, it is a good idea. We'll put the big Labor thing across the front and we'll tilt the L so we don't get sued for using their logo or something. But just an idea I had. I don't know if you're keen on it. If we print them out, we will bring the Labor Party and the Liberal Party. Yeah, we'll bring them to Dunedoo.
That is actually a really good idea. That is a really good idea. The only danger is, people might wind up thinking the cardboard cutouts are doing a better job than the actual politicians. And because on that point, before it came to me, I was literally going to say, I would say, Zali, I'll do the challenge. We both go up there to, where were we today? What was one of the solar projects we were at?
Wellington.
We'll go to Wellington. We'll both stand out the front. I'll take a photo and say, I voted against this and I want to stop this. And you can take a photo saying, I love this. This is great. And you have to put them up on your Facebook page. Let's see who does better at the next election. Because I guarantee you, if she was standing there, if Chris Bowen was standing there and they were taking photos in front of those things, the people would turn against him, which is why they will run a mile. I've never seen one of these politicians at one.
will soon.
That's why I love that idea. So I'm going to strongly recommend we do that because I think, if they don't have the guts to stand in front of it and own their decisions and the damage they're inflicting, then maybe we have to
tape them up everywhere.
Spinning them around.
Time wherever you want.
The cardboard cutout, right?
Cardboard everywhere.
Okay.
I've got a boring question, I'm sorry. How do you get a majority? We've got a preferential system of voting and you've got going to have to do a deal with somebody. You're going to have to do a deal with the Nationals. You're going to have to do a deal with the Libertarians. You're going to have to do a deal with, Clive Palmer's lot, whatever he reinvents himself as. So you're going to have to deal with somebody. Now, we've seen the results of deals. It was John Howard that got the nuclear ban. He passed the nuclear ban because he had to do a deal for the GST. So he did that deal to ban nuclear. So we're bearing the ramifications of that now. How are you guys going to get a majority? You're going to have to do some sort of a deal with the other so-called conservative parties. How's that working out for you? Are they trying to kill you or are they going to deal with you?
I mean, look, it's a fair point you make. I'll say I do not believe that I don't believe in deals. I think the beauty of One Nation is we stand independent and strong, and we are not here to compromise. We are not the National Party. Because people talk a lot about policies or what's their policy. Well, I'll tell you what, come the last federal election, you go to the National Party website, you click their policies, took you straight to the Liberal Party. And that's where compromise and deals will get you. And you how do you win? How do you wind up influencing if you've got these? Look at the Labor Party. I mean, what do they get? 30% of the vote, and they got a majority in government. A majority in government. And then they'll ask you, and he will say flat out, "We're not doing a deal." And I think, honestly, I do not believe. I believe you go for the win. You go to in your own right. You go to govern, and then you have to, whatever the reality is after that, then that's something you address. But right now, I am not interested in deals. I'm interested in what One Nation's position is, One Nation's policy, and we will advocate for that as strongly as we possibly can. We won't take a backward step. And that is purely what I'm focused on.
Here. I completely agree. I think that dealing with these guys is nonsensical at this point. I don't believe we're living through a time in history that there's no one in this room has ever lived through before. So the last time that we went through anything like this would have been in the 40s and the 50s, which is about when the Liberal Party was started, which is when the United Australia Party collapsed, right? And since that time, both major parties, so I think 2019 was the first time that both major parties had been below 40%, right? One of them had been below 40, but the other one had been at 45 or whatever, right? And they crisscrossed over, but no one had been below 40. Now, they're struggling to keep 30%, right? So this is a seismic shift that I don't think people are properly taking full account of what's actually happening here. And momentum is very hard to stop in politics. It's very hard to start, as Clive Palmer's found about 11 times. But, it's very hard to stop. And we have the momentum behind us at the moment. And I don't believe that we need to do a deal with the Liberals. I actually think it would be beneficial for us to when they put out the olive branch, is to slap it away and tell them to go and do a deal with the Labor Party, because they're not our friends either. They are not our friends. They turn their back on us every opportunity that they get. They have no principles. They have no spine. I sat there with the Leader of the Senate when he tried to convince me to run for the National Party, and he was absolute. We will not do anything till the polls move. We will not address the NDIS. Every major policy that you could imagine. And I said, well, you're just a Labor Party. You're just a rebranded Labor Party. They were just a bunch of cowards. They did not want to do anything. So doing a deal with people like that, that's just. So you guys have got to get a majority. We will get a majority. That's what's going to happen. Or we will get enough seats that neither party can make majority government, right? We will just be the thorn in that side where we will have enough MPs that the communists can't make they can't make government, and the half communists can't make one either. And then from there we will have to. But at the moment, looking at it at the moment, don't throw anything at me. But you would nearly talk to Chris Minns over the Liberal Party in New South Wales. The Chris Minns is to the right of the Liberal Party. So what do we do in that sort of a situation where like you feel like we should be teaming up with the Liberal Party, but they're the worst of the two picks, you know? And then I look at Labor Party, look at Matt Keane, exactly, Matt Keane, Matt Green, and I think I'm just repulsed by the Labor Party, but at the same time I look and I go, out of the pick of them, you're probably better off governing at the moment. And that's a horrible thing for me to say. I washed my mouth out. But the Liberal Party put Matt Green in, right? And he gave rise to what we're seeing right now. And then he's now jumped ship and he's selling this stuff now to the public. That should be illegal. That's the stuff the Americans do with a big revolving door in and out of the pharma companies into the regulators and back out again. So, look, we're in a rock and a hard place at the moment, and I agree with Sean. We just need to run our own race. We need to focus on what we're doing, and the future will have what it will have, you know. It'll right itself. But we're living through historical times. We really, really are. I don't know I think it will end up with more of a European-style government where no party will have a majority. It'll be made up by smaller parties. I'm not sure what Sean thinks about that, but I can't see this. It's not going to continue with the two majors the way that it always has.
I mean, you look at the Labor Party as a preferential voting system. They've got a full majority in the federal government right now. So, it's not an obstacle for forming government. That's just think about that. If Anthony Albanese can do it, I'm pretty sure we can do it. You know what I mean? Like
30%.
You know, that's exactly right. So,
and we're at 28.
Yeah. I believe voters have their own. If the voters will preference, the voters at the end of the day, it's the voters who control their preferences. And in a federal system, no one has any control over your preferences. You go in the booth, you're there, you mark your vote. And so I'll say, give us your number one preference. Give us your number one preference, and I'll say at the end, and then you decide. You know, and I'm going to say, and I'll say it right now, Labor Greens go last, and the Teals go right down the bottom with them. That's what I'll be telling people to do. That's what I believe we should be doing on a federal level. Labor Greens right down the bottom, One Nation, One. Yep. So that's what I'll be advising, but I'll not be advocating for any deals. Like that's just the end of the day. It's One Nation, One. Labor Greens down the bottom. And the preference, and the voters, you control your own preferences.
Just to finish up, if I could just say a huge thank you to some key people here. I'm going to say it again, and you've already heard it. This lady right here ran today like a military operation. I have to wonder whether she wasn't in the army at some point. Stuart and Senator Bell, thank you so much for coming out. This has just been fantastic to have you here. I saw your faces today. I saw the impact that it had on you. It's the best thing ever that you got to see it all. These guys over here, all the way out from Sydney. Stephen Tripp, I don't know how he does it. He's got like a nuclear factory inside of him. He makes everything happen. All the stuff that all of us do don't happen without volunteers. You're all here tonight. That's what you're doing. You're here volunteering your time. Please keep it up. Our nation needs it. Our future relies on people like you. Thank you very much for coming tonight.